the world's great novels. The NBC University of the Air presents the third episode in its four-part dramatization of Thomas Hardy's masterpiece, The Return of the Native, another in its series of books that live, the world's great novel.
Trouble is brewing in the lives of the people gathered on the great stretch of waste country known as Egdon Heath. Clem Yeobright has married the proud and passionate Eustacia Vi, in spite of the bitter protests of his mother. On his wedding day, Mrs. Yeobright sends a messenger to Clem with a gift of money, but the messenger is waylaid and loses the money gambling with Thomason Yeobright's husband, Damon Wildeve. Wildeve, in turn, loses it to Diggory Venn, the Reddleman, who delivers it not to Clem, but to Thomason, never realizing the bitterness to be born of his mistake. It was July. The heather was fire to scarlet, and the heath was gorgeous to look upon. Clem and Eustacia, in their little house at Alderworth, were living with a monotony which was delightful to them. Absorbed in their love, they were like those double stars which revolve round and round each other. But when a few weeks had passed, something happened to interrupt Eustacia's dreams.
Clem, shall we walk out on the hills today? It's a wonderful morning.
You'll have to go alone today, darling.
Alone? But why?
I'll have to be unpacking my books.
Oh, bother your books.
Well, I've got to get ready to open my school now as soon as I can.
You're still thinking of that school?
Thinking of it? Well, I've never stopped.
Well, I thought we'd be going to Paris.
I never said so. You knew you'd be a schoolmaster's wife.
Yes, but I hoped...
What, darling?
Nothing.
Well, then, you go and enjoy your walk alone. I've got work to do.
Eustacia had built all her hopes on the idea that once married to Clem, she could persuade him to give up the idea of the school and return to Paris. Now, the sight of Clem poring all day over his work was a painful shock to her dreams. As a diversion, she left Alderworth to spend a few days with her grandfather at Mistover. At Bloom's End, Mrs. Yeobright heard of this and thought she saw an opportunity.
Christian, will you come in here?
Aye, Mrs. Yeobright. I'd be nearly through in the garden, ma'am.
Never mind that. Christian, you're sure you delivered that money to Mr. Clem and Miss Thomason?
Why, yes, ma'am,
It's very strange. Thomason wrote to thank me 2 weeks ago, but I've had no word from Clem.
Likely all his thoughts be on his new wife, ma'am.
I don't see. Is Eustacia still at her grandfather's at Mistover?
I think she be, ma'am.
I believe I'll walk up there today. Perhaps something happened to the money.
Oh, ma'am, you ought not to do that.
Why not?
Oh, why, the walk, it might be too much for you.
Nonsense. It isn't far.
But, ma'am...
What's the matter with you, Christian? You seem to be afraid to have me go.
Nothing, ma'am, only...
Out with it now.
Ma'am, I didn't take the money straight to Mistover.
What?
Oh, the Lord have mercy on me, ma'am. I was walking along to Mistover with Mr. Wildeve, and we fell to playing with dice.
You gambled with the money I gave you?
I thought as how 'twas all one, since Miss Thomason and Mr. Wildeve be man and wife.
But what about Clem's money? Did Mr. Wildeve keep that?
Oh, I hope not, ma'am. Perhaps he gave it to Eustacia for her to give Mr. Clem.
Eustacia? He'd give my son's money to that woman?
Oh, ma'am, are you thinking...
I'm thinking many things, Christian. I'm going to Mistover now to have a word with this fine wife that my son has married. I was coming to see you, Eustacia.
Indeed? I didn't expect you.
I'm here on business.
Business? With me?
Will you tell me something? Have you received a gift from Thomason's husband?
A gift?
I mean money.
What? Money from Mr. Wildeve? What do you mean by that?
I only asked.
I knew you were against me from the first.
I was for Clem. I'm not ashamed of the truth. I didn't want him to marry you, and I tried to keep him from it. But now that it is done, I'm not complaining anymore.
Then why should you think there's anything between me and Mr. Wildeve? Let me remind you that I was condescending when I married Clem, not maneuvering.
That's amusing, I must say.
And let me tell you, I'd have thought twice about marrying him. If I'd known, I'd still be living in the heat.
I'm sure he didn't deceive you. I don't know about the other side.
How dare you? I won't be treated as a schemer. You were against me before, and now you...
I couldn't help what I thought. I never spoke of you outside my house.
You spoke of me inside it.
I did my duty.
And I'll do mine.
And yours is to set him against his mother.
Then why don't you come and drag him away from me?
Don't rage at me, madam. I'm only a poor old woman who has lost a son.
It was your own fault you lost him if you treated me honorably.
I've done nothing.
Now you tell Clem what I've said today. There'll be more misery. Will you go away?
One word. I have been honest in all things, and God has been unjust to me. But he will not let you insult me for nothing, Eustacia. God will punish you for bringing me this evil time.
Back so soon, Eustacia? Why, what is the matter, dearest?
Nothing. Let me go upstairs.
Come, tell me. There's something. I can see it in your face.
All right, then. I've seen your mother, and I'll never see her again.
What is this? What has happened?
How can I tell? What do I know about Mr. Wildeve now?
Mr. Wildeve?
It was too humiliating, asking if I'd gotten any money from him or encouraged him or what. Oh, I don't know.
Well, how could she ask that?
She did.
Well, she must have had some meaning. What else did she say?
We both said things that will never be forgiven. Clem, you've put me in a terrible position, and you've got to get me out of it.
Out? But how?
I hate this, Clem. Take me back to Paris. I don't care how we live, if only it's Paris and not Egdon.
But I told you, dearest, I'd given up that idea.
I know you told me, but can't I have any voice in the matter?
I don't want you to be unhappy, dear. But you're my wife now. You must share what happens to me.
The mystery of the money was cleared the next day by a hurried visit from Thomason, bringing Clem his share. But now a new trouble came into the house at Alderworth. For a few weeks later, Clem returned home from a visit he had paid to a doctor at Anglesbury.
Clem, what did the doctor say?
Too much studying. It's an inflammation of the eyes. I've got to rest them completely.
But you'll be better soon.
He can't tell. I won't be able to work for a long time, if ever.
My poor Clem.
I wanted so much to get my school going.
And how will we live now?
Oh, now, don't despair about that. I can turn my hand to something.
But what?
I met Humphrey on the road as I was coming home.
Humphrey? Oh, one of the faggot cutters. Well?
He's paid £0.50 100 for his faggots.
Clem, you wouldn't.
It's an honest occupation, my dear. And besides, the little money we've got won't last very long.
I'd rather starve than have you do it. Clem, my grandfather will help us if we need it.
We don't need it. We'll be fairly well off.
Well off in comparison with slaves. This labor, Clem, I can't have it. It's too shameful.
But when the first acute pain had gone from his eyes, Clem set to work at the employment he had chosen. To Eustacia, the sight of her husband as a common laborer was a torment. And bitterest of all was that Clem did not seem to mind. Following him onto the heath one day, she even heard him singing at his work. And it was this, perhaps, that set her looking for a way to shake off her depression. The yearly festivity on Egdon was a great picnic or gypsying, to which came all of the young men and girls to dance out in a few hours the gaiety and emotion collected through the long workdays. A yellow moon was rising over the heath when Eustacia came in sight of the stretch of lawn on East Egdon and saw the figures on the green moving in and out in the pattern of the dance. She stood watching for a while when suddenly...
You like dancing as much as ever, Eustacia?
What? Damon.
Answer my question. Do you still like to dance?
Well, I think I do.
Will you dance with me?
Will it not seem strange?
Strange. We are relations, after all.
Yes. Relations. Perhaps it would be all right.
Your arm, my dear? You're enjoying the dance, Eustacia?
I am. It's been such a long time.
Ah, there's color in your cheeks. It's lovely.
How came you here without Thomason?
There's a fair over the way. I came to buy a horse.
A horse? Oh, these practical matters.
Yes, let's not talk of them. Look, we'll be top couple in a moment. Come, sit on this bank. I think you're tired from the dance.
Not greatly, Damon.
It's strange that we should meet here, of all places, after missing each other so long.
We've missed because we've tried to miss, I suppose.
You began that.
It's not worthwhile to talk about it now.
I suppose not. I'm sorry to hear that your husband is ill.
He's not ill. It's only his eyes.
Well, that's what I meant. I'm sorry for your trouble.
Have you heard that he's working as a faggot cutter?
I heard it, but I hardly believed it.
It's true. What do you think of me as a faggot cutter's wife?
I think the same of you as ever, Eustacia. Is there any chance of Mr. Yeobright's getting better?
He thinks so. I doubt it.
You'll go to Paris, I suppose. He does get better.
I can't talk about that.
I see. Did you intend to walk home by yourself?
Oh, yes. What could hurt me?
I'll keep you company. Unless you don't want to be seen with me.
When there's such thing, I'll accept any company I like.
We'll start walking then, if you're ready.
Yes.
Wait a minute. Who's that coming toward us on the path?
One of them is my husband. He must be coming after me. I can't tell who the other is.
Well, no matter. He's turning off.
Well, come. Deliver me up to Plim.
You'll think twice about that. How can he believe that we met by chance?
Very well, then. Leave me before he comes up.
Good night, my dear.
Is that you, Eustacia?
Yes, Plim.
Are you ready to come home now?
Yes, I was just starting.
Well, I'm glad I found you then. I don't much care to have you walking alone.
I saw someone with you a moment ago, Plim. Who was it?
Oh, our old friend here. You remember him? Diggory Venn, the Reddleman.
Damon?
Yes, Thomason?
Oh, I wish you wouldn't go out in the evenings, Damon. I was lonely.
You're too sensitive, my dear.
Where have you put the horse, Damon?
I didn't buy it after all. The man wanted too much.
But someone saw you at East Egdon leading it home.
Impossible.
Oh, yes. He said it was a beauty with a white face and a name as black as night.
What? Who told you that?
Diggory Venn, the Reddleman.
Mr. Venn was mistaken, Thomason. He must have seen someone else.
It was some days later that the Reddleman, having spent his evenings in the neighborhood of Clem's house at Alderworth, went to call upon Mrs. Yeobright and brought her the information he had gained.
Depend on it, ma'am. It would be a good thing if you'd make yourself at home in both their houses.
Thomason and Clem both disobeyed me in marrying. Their troubles are their own making.
Your visits might prevent some unhappiness, ma'am.
How do you mean?
Oh, I don't like what I've seen at Alderworth. I wish your son's house and Mr. Wildeve's were 100 miles apart.
Then there is something between him and Clem's wife.
Well, I think I've persuaded Wildeve to mind his own business.
How?
Oh, by a little silent method of mine.
What have you done?
I took things a bit into my own hands, ma'am. One night as I watched, he made a signal at her window. And before she could come out, I went down and pounded on the door, and then made off quick-like. I knew Mr. Clem wouldn't let her out after that.
Well done, Mr. Venn. Have you done anything else?
Aye, ma'am. The second time, I let him hear a bit of noise out of this.
A gun? But, Mr. Venn...
Oh, I'll not harm him, ma'am. But I'll show him I mean him to stay away.
I hope you succeed.
I shall, ma'am. If you will help me by calling and making friends with your son.
Yes. He's my only son. If it's come to this, I will forgive him, Mr. Venn. I'll go to Alderworth.
The 31st of August was the day on which the sun, from early morning, branded the heath with a stifling heat. The sky glittered a metallic violet. The air was like that of a kiln, and the plants in the gardens had lagged to the ground by 10 o'clock. It was 11 o'clock when Mrs. Yeobright started across the heath to her son's house. The stifling heat had exhausted her strength by the end of the 3rd mile when she stopped to ask the way.
You see that furze cutter, ma'am, going up the path yonder?
Yes. Yes, I see.
You can make no mistake if you follow him. He's going to the same place.
To Alderworth?
Aye, ma'am.
His walk. It's like my husband. What? That's my son. That's Clem.
Oh, he's Clem Yeobright, all right, ma'am.
My son. And I'd never have known him from any other furze cutter.
He's a good workman, ma'am.
I knew he did this, and yet... Oh, I must help him.
You'll excuse me, ma'am, but you seem to be needing help yourself.
It's nothing, only the heat.
'Tis terrible, ma'am. But you ought to sit down and rest a bit.
No, thank you. I've come this far now. I've got to get to the house.
Damon, it was not wise of you to come here.
I'm prevented from coming at night. What's the harm in an ordinary call?
Well, none, I suppose.
Is your husband at home?
Yes, but you'll not see him. He's asleep on the hearthrug.
On the hearthrug?
He's just come in from his work. He's very tired.
He still cuts faggots?
Yes.
The fates have not been kind to you.
I have nothing to thank them for.
But he has.
Why?
For you. There's a meaning in his life. There's none in mine.
You still love me, then?
Yes.
I'm sorry to hear it. I'm not happy enough to spurn you as I ought to.
Don't talk of spurning.
Oh, wait. Let me look out of the window. Oh, Damon.
Who is it?
Mrs. Yeobright. What is she doing here? And she suspects us as it is.
Did she see you at the window?
I don't know.
Shall I go into the next room?
I've done no wrong. If she comes in, she's got to see you.
Open the door, then.
Clem will hear it. He'll wake up and let her in.
I ought to go, I think.
Well, yes, perhaps. I have a bad name with her. Come this way. You can go by the back door.
May I come again?
What? No, Damon. It won't do now. Goodbye.
Well, I've had all I came for. I'm satisfied.
What was that?
The sight of you. Goodbye, Eustacia.
Clem? Clem? What? He's still asleep. She's gone.
Anxious to get out of the direct view of the house, Mrs. Yeobright left the path, and looking about to find it again, she came upon a small boy who trotted along beside her.
I be Johnny Nonsuch. Who be you?
'Tis a long way home, my child.
What makes you so down? Have you seen a ghost?
I've seen worse. A woman's face looking at me through a window.
Is that a bad sight?
Shut out. On such a day.
What is it you say?
Never again. Never.
'Tis bad to talk nonsense.
Yes, child. It is nonsense, I suppose. Aren't you spent with the heat?
Not so much as you.
How do you know?
Your face is white, and your head is hanging down like. And why do you walk so funny?
I have a burden, child. More than I can bear. I must sit down here to rest.
Do you always draw your breath like that?
Not always.
I don't like to bide still. Will you start soon again?
I don't know.
Might I go on by myself?
Yes, child, go. I can stay here.
Shall I tell my mother, Summit?
Tell her. Tell her you have seen a broken-hearted woman cast off by her son.
Have you had a good sleep, Clem?
Ah, yes. What o'clock is it?
2:30.
Week after week passes and Mother does not come. I think I'll walk to Bloom's End after dinner.
Tonight?
Yes, tonight. I'm sure if I make the advance, Mother will forget everything.
I don't like your going tonight.
Why not?
If you don't go tonight, I'll promise to go myself tomorrow.
If I wait for you to go, it's another day lost. You can see her afterwards. It will all be the same.
Could I go with you now?
I shall walk too fast for you. No, not tonight.
Very well, Clem. Let it be as you wish.
As evening came, Eustacia, left alone in the house, began to be more and more afraid of what might happen when Clem should learn that his mother had been turned from the door. At length, she became so restless that she resolved to walk toward Bloom's End in the hope of meeting him on his return. But just at the gate, she heard wheels approaching.
Whoa there. Evening, Eustacia.
Grandfather, I wasn't expecting you. Come into the house.
Can't stay. Just came round to tell you the news.
What news?
Mr. Wildeve's fortune, £11,000.
What?
Uncle died in Canada. Wildeve's come into everything.
How long has he known about it?
Oh, must have known this morning. I heard it at 10 o'clock. Well, that's a lucky man, eh? What a fool you were, Eustacia.
How?
Why, you're not sticking to him when you had him.
No, had him indeed.
And how's your poor blind husband, eh? Not a bad fellow either, far as he goes.
Quite well.
Good thing for his cousin, that Thomason. Yes. Well, I must drive on. Do you need any money?
Thank you, but we're not in want.
Heard your husband was cutting faggots.
He does it to pass the time.
And for 3 shillings 100?
He has money, but he likes to earn a little.
Yes. Well, better for him. Yeah, I'll be going on, Eustacia. Good night. Up there. Up.
Eustacia went on her way slowly, with her thoughts no longer on Clem and her mother-in-law. Instead, she thought of Wildeve, who was now the possessor of a fortune. So intent was she in thinking of him that she was hardly surprised when suddenly he stood before her in the path.
Which way are you going?
Towards Bloom's End, to meet my husband. I think I got into trouble while you were with me today.
How could that be?
By not letting Mrs. Yeobright in.
I hope my visit did you no harm.
It was not your fault. I assume I must congratulate you.
Oh, on my inheritance. Well, your husband is still a richer man than I.
Would you change with him?
I would.
Since we're talking nonsense, shall we change the subject? What are your plans now?
I shall travel. Then I'll stay in Paris, I imagine.
Paris? Thomason will go with you?
If she wishes.
So, you will be going about, and I'll be staying here.
I suppose you will. But we know whose fault that is.
Don't reproach me anymore. I can't bear it. Haven't you come out of your way, Mr. Wilding?
My way is anywhere. I'll see you to the hill above Bloom's End.
Don't trouble. I'd rather you didn't come with me any further.
Very well. Wait a minute. What light is that over there?
It's a hut. But it's always empty. You'd better see me past it.
Come along, then. Wonder what it is. I can see people inside.
There's a woman lying on the floor. Damon, it's Clem's mother. And Clem's there. I can see him. What can it mean?
Let's go closer. Stay in the shadow. Perhaps we can hear.
Thomason, can you think where she could have been going?
I don't know, Clem.
It must have been a long way. This is more exhaustion than anything. You left word for the doctor, Christian.
I did, Mr. Clem, before ever I went for Miss Thomason.
The doctor can do no more than I've done, Mr. Clem.
Oh, these old remedies, Susan. I don't know.
The oil of an adder for the sting of an adder, Mr. Clem. It's a sure cure.
But the one we had was dead, Susan. It should be live.
No matter, Christian. They don't die till the sun goes down. It was pretty fresh meat.
No telling how long she was lying there in the path before I found her.
Now, never you worry, Mr. Clem. The adder's oil will fix her up. Here, rub some more on the sting.
No. Wait. It's no use.
What is it, Thomason?
She's gone, Clem.
Oh, Mother. Mother.
Why is the lady sleeping?
Honey, hush. Go on outside.
I have something to tell you, Mother.
Go on out, I said.
It's all right, Susan. What is it, child?
That lady walked along with me today.
Oh.
And she said I was to say that I had seen her. And she was a broken-hearted woman cast off by her son.
Cast off? No. No, Mother. It isn't true. It isn't true.
Damon, I must go to Clement. But I don't dare.
What is this, Eustacia? Wasn't she admitted to your house?
No. And so she's dead. Damon, I'm to blame for this.
The Return of the Native by Thomas Hardy is one of the world's great novels, brought to you each week by the NBC University of the Air. Listen next week to the final episode of Return of the Native, and remember that this and countless other great books are available in your local public library. Herbert Gorman's Handbook of the World's Great Novels is a valuable aid to enjoyment of these broadcasts. Just send 25 cents with your request to World's Great Novels, Post Office Box 30, Station J, New York 27, New York. That's Post Office Box 30, Station J, New York 27. The Return of the Native is adapted for radio by Clarence Ross. The music was composed by Emil Soderstrom, and the orchestra was directed by Bernard Berquist. The entire production was under the direction of Homer Heck. David Garroway is the narrator. Eustacia is played by Nanette Sargent. Mrs. Yeobright by Hope Summers, Thomason by Doris Grundy, Clem by Sidney Breeze, Wild Eve by Everett Clark, Diggory Ben by Larry Alexander, Christian by Johnny Coons, Captain Vi by Sherman Marks, Johnny by Tommy De Leon, and Susan by Ruth Shames. This is John Conrad. This program comes to you from Chicago and is a presentation of the National Broadcasting Company and its